This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
All right, this is the one I can feel it. Podcast. The first and the best Chiefs podcast. Real ones know the show is called Amateur Hour. The Amateur Hour podcast is now airing on KC Sports Network. Ryan, Scott Hall, and his Dirkness are back again. We've got football, friendship, and fun. All these shows, we're still number one, season 12. Oh, wow, here it comes. Welcome, my friends, to Amateur Hour podcast. Man, I can't hit that note right. Podcast! Is that right? Well.
Don't worry, nobody's listening anyway.
What is this, amateur hour?
Yeah, I ain't no Superman businessman like you. You know, I'm just an
amateur,
I suppose.
Amateur Hour
Is what's happening.
Amateur Hour
Is what's happening.
Yeah, that's right, folks. The show's called Amateur Hour. I'm Ryan Scott Hall. And joining me today, my swag surfing soul brother, his Dirkness.
Subsicles in the mustache. All over the mustache.
I was laughing at your swag surf.
I've never swag surfed. Did I do it right?
No. That was as white as all of the people in the suite. It's so funny.
It's hard in a rolling chair.
The black people that I know have complained so much about that clip because they're like, none of them are doing the dance correctly. And I'm like, it's Taylor Swift. She's got no rhythm.
Sorry.
She might be able to sing, but the girl can't dance or clap.
Can't clap. Oh, she's figuring things out. I'd say she's doing pretty good.
Honestly, the high fours.
The high fours. That was an odd thing, like a four horseman. Was it for Rashee Rice? I assume.
Rashee. That's a Rashee.
She got her eye on Rashee. Maybe she has a friend she's going to set up with Rashee Rice.
Oh, okay. I like it. I'll be able to add to her sales pitch on Rashee Rice a little bit later in the show. But first, Dirk. We've been talking about the identity of the 2023 Chiefs for most of the season. Did they finally figure out who they are heading into the biggest game of the year?
Man, I really think they might have. And, you know, it's crazy because I think the team almost admitted as much, you know, after that Raiders loss and before that Bengals game with the whole simplify the offense theory. And they put that out there to anybody who would listen that week, and everyone's kind of spouting off about it. And now you've kind of seen it, it come to fruition these last two games that they've played. But I do think that's the story with the team right now. And I'm going to kind of pat ourselves, Mahomes ourselves on the back right here, both of us, because for about a month before that Bengals game, Ryan was pleading that this is now a defensive team, that they needed to change their mindset, get to a point where you're okay kicking field goals. You're shoring up the turnovers. Mahomes out there throwing it away a season high 7 times in this game. His previous season high on the season was 4. So you saw that come to fruition. Running the ball, but the simplifying the offense, that's about as much as an admission you're going to get from an NFL team. But they're kind of changing their mindset. You can kind of see the team figuring it out. And that's what I was been touting all season. This team will figure it out come January. When you have the brain trust of Andy Reid, when you have Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, and now you're adding this defense to the mix, we went through all these struggles all season long, and, it might not look the same, with Kelsey's regression and MVS's leftovers like departure from Earth, but they had to figure out a new way. But they knew they had all season to figure it out because they are a January team, and that was always their focus. And both these perspectives kind of came to a head on Christmas Day when they got absolutely embarrassed by the Raiders. They hit rock bottom. We talked about them hitting rock bottom a couple times this season, but they actually did hit rock bottom that Christmas Day when the entire country is watching them get embarrassed at home by the lowly Raiders. And they figured out they needed to reassess themselves, and I think it might have been the best thing for this team. And, I don't want to take too big a victory lap here because they basically reached, the floor of where this team should be, the divisional round. I never thought this team would lose in the wild card round unless it was like they drew Buffalo or something like that. But I do think you can now say, I feel comfortable saying that this team is at a similar level as a team as last year. It's a different style, obviously. It's much more defensive. We talked about that. But, going back to last year, I don't think anybody would have been shocked, if we lose to like Buffalo in the divisional round or Cincinnati in the AFC Championship. They're right there as one of the best 3 to 5 teams in the league. And then they gutted out 3 close wins to win the Super Bowl. That's how you win a Super Bowl. I don't think they were just like hands down the best team. You rarely get a Super Bowl team who's just like a runaway Super Bowl champion. They were right there. They were one of the best. And then they won the close games. And after a lot of turbulence, I think they're right back in the same spot this year. And I'm expecting something very similar this weekend. And so it's time to go out and see if they can pull out another close win in a heated battle that everybody wants to see this weekend against the Buffalo Bills.
I think that like what is so interesting to me is that I got to a point maybe more than once this year where I was just telling myself they're not going to figure it out. Like, the ups and downs, particularly after the 6-1 start, where it was like the only thing that they had in terms of a streak after starting 6-1 was 2 losses in a row. It was every other week, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. And they just looked so discombobulated at times. And man, that game on Saturday night in the absolutely frigid temperatures here in Kansas City, suddenly, I mean, look, I know it was a playoff game and all, but like that was the most satisfying win of the season for me. Back-to-back best game of the year. I was saying that the win over the Bengals was the best game that they had played this season in terms of embracing that defensive team. I know everybody's complaining about the efficiency in the red zone, and that happened again. We can talk about that here in a minute, but like they are playing their best football in January. And I mean, shame on me for thinking that maybe they weren't going to get there, but there were just so many signs throughout the year, despite what they were saying. We are so close. We are so close. We're going to turn that corner. I mean, consistently, very optimistic, positive messaging from Andy, from Pat, from Matt Nagy, from Travis, and eventually we come to this kind of breaking point, like you mentioned on Christmas. And what's the word they use? Simplify. We're going to simplify some things. And I don't know if that was it. I don't know if it was the simplification of the offense. I don't know if it was recognizing, like I heard in the press conferences the week leading up to this game, leading up to the division the wild card round game against Miami on Saturday, I heard Patrick Mahomes, Matt Nagy, and Travis Kelce all, now paraphrasing here, but all of them said the exact same thing. We have a tremendous defense, and we have to play complementary football to them. It's like they finally recognize it. I talked about the major league problem that they had. Like, can they not see who they are? Do they need glasses? Well, folks, Ricky Vaughn has got his spectacles on, all right, because the Chiefs know who they are. And now they are as dangerous as any team in the NFL because they actually have an identity and they know how to play the right way.
Yeah, I mean, and you're seeing it with the offense. I mean, look at the first drive of the game. It is just a steady dose. Isaiah Pacheco, Travis Kelce, and Rashee Rice. They figured out these are our 3. This is who we're riding. Those are the only 3 players to touch the ball in that drive. Boom, right down the field and touchdown to just take full control of this game. All right, now Tua, you can't go out here and play small ball the rest of the game. You're going to be playing from behind the entire game. Let's see what you can do out here in this cold. And I mean, obviously they couldn't do anything. I didn't need like an opening drive touchdown, but that just set the tone for the game and they rode their guys. And it's so much complaints about snap counts all season long. Like, where's Rashee Rice's snap counts? they're giving it to MVS. They're doing this. They knew that they had all season. The goal wasn't to, overload Rashee Rice in week 9. The goal wasn't to have him ready in week 9. The goal was to have him ready in January. And now you look at Rashee Rice, who had 130 yards in his playoff debut, which is one fewer yard, as Nick Wright points out, than Tyreek Hill had in his 2 playoff seasons with the Dolphins. So Tyreek had 131 yards combining his playoff game last year and this year. Rashee Rice in his playoff debut, 130 yards this year. So you've seen them just figure out what they have. They knew they had to have that other receiver. So they're kind of just like, well, we have to have a guy like MVS. We have to have a guy like McCole, a guy that can do these things. And you saw those shots, and they didn't work in this game. If they had, we'd be talking about, a 44-7 kind of blowout here if McCole just makes a few plays on those deep shots. They need that guy, but still, even having that guy and having the separation and getting him open behind the defense like that still opens everything else up underneath. And it's crazy that you just seen them embrace their new identity like this. It was good to see. I thought Mahomes looked the best he had all season. I thought he was decisive. I thought he was mentally ahead of every single blitz that came his way. I thought it was the perfect mix of aggressive enough to pick up 3rd and longs. He picked up a 10-yard 3rd and 10, a 3rd and 7, and a 3rd and 10 all in the first half, but conservative enough to know that, I need to throw the ball away sometimes. I'm not going to get sacked in the entire game. I'm not going to turn the ball over, and I'm going to protect the points when we can get the points. And so you can complain about the field goals all that you want, but we're going to keep stockpiling points. This offense has now scored on 13 of their last 17 drives going back to the Cincinnati game. I'm removing the last 2 from this Miami game because the game was over. How it was over? Because they took a 3rd down deep shot to MVS. That's kind of marked the end of the game for everybody involved. So 13 scoring drives on their last 17 drives. A very, very good rate since they've embraced this new style of offense and team mentality.
Yeah, I mean, I knew after the Bengals game, I want to say it was 7 of 9, 6 of 9 against
7 of 9, yeah.
7. I mean, and I think it was 6 of 9 against Miami. And I wasn't even, going through and trying to count like which ones they maybe did, like the MVS toss, like you mentioned. They were probably 6 of 8 and 7 of 9 the last 2 weeks, excluding the Chargers game when the starters weren't out there. I mean, some other signs, though, that they're figuring some things out. We have talked about how this offense is most dangerous when they are balanced. Pat dropped back to pass 43 times. He scrambled twice and let off 41 pass attempts. They also handed the ball off 32 times. 41 passes to 32 runs is about as balanced as I think we're going to see. It was maybe even more passing than whether it was fans were thinking. Certainly, it sounds like the Dolphins were thinking. They really came out and started just throwing the ball comfortably, and then Andy has that kind of a jab at Tua. As spicy as Andy gets, I guess, not everybody can throw it in this weather. But man, I mean, you pounded Pacheco 24 carries. The guy was an absolute animal. I love the stat that you shared right at the top. And in case you guys weren't catching it, you weren't paying attention at the very beginning, Pat Mahomes had 7 throwaways in that game, and the previous high this season was 4. I mean, he was putting the ball in the dirt consistently throughout the game because he says, we're going to live to fight another down. And I tell you what, even with those 7 throwaways, the Chiefs managed to have 400 yards of offense, even in the incredible sub-zero temperatures, over 400 yards of offense. You know how many times they did that in the regular season? 3. It's one of their best offensive games of the year. I mean, they are producing, which is certainly helping them. The fact that they're getting into the red zone so often and ultimately putting points on the board so consistently. But man, they are moving the ball. They are being patient. They're figuring out how to be efficient. And as we'll talk about after a break here coming up, I don't even think they're doing anything that special. It's wonderful to watch. What was your point there? I saw you lift your finger.
Oh, I was just going to say it was their 3rd most yards of the season, and their most since week 7. And so they've had 7 games this season where they've gone over 360 yards. They've done that in weeks 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7. So 5 in the first 7 weeks of the season, and then the Cincinnati game and the wild card game against the Dolphins. So they had it going early. They went into a huge lull, and then here they are in January figuring it out once again.
Let's talk a little bit more about this Dolphins game before we transition into Chiefs-Bills right after this break.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Well, folks, if you love sports, and you're here, so of course you do, maybe you should think about coaching some local youth in order to share that love of sports with a younger audience. Our partners this year, the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City, they need your help. Beyond their after-school programming that's going on, they also have leagues for baseball, softball, basketball, flag football, and more. So if you find yourself coaching from the couch during games, just consider coaching from the sidelines as a volunteer with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City. All you got to do is visit helpkckids.org and click on volunteer for more information.
Your company can hit it out of the park with a sports league sponsorship with Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City. Reach thousands of local families while giving kids the opportunity to get in the game. Contact giving at helpkckids.org for more information.
Dirk, one way that I think the offense really found success, like the method to their madness against the Dolphins, was that they just decided, you know what? We're going to throw it to our best players. We're going to focus on the production of these big three with Pacheco, Kelsey, and now Rashee Rice. Thanks to Carrington Harrison at 610 Sports KC for doing the math for me. 40 touches, 279 yards combined for Pacheco, Kelsey, and Rice. The rest of the offense, 15 touches for 79 yards. It's phenomenal, man. If you go through and look, what Rashee Rice did was impressive. The 8 for 130 and a touchdown should have been 9 for about 138 and 2 touchdowns. That was a very questionable penalty. Juwan Taylor getting shoved in the back and then him hitting someone else in the back. And it was also not really consequential to the play, whatever. Anyway, Rashee Rice had 12 targets, which is the exact same number as all of the other guys on the team, not named Kelsey, combined. I mean, like, this is the type of stuff that teams have to do. You got to have it. We're throwing it to Rashee Rice. Like, most of the game, Mahomes isn't even bothering with the other pass catchers. And you end up getting a vintage Travis Kelsey performance, almost a little too vintage with the drops. It looked like young Kelsey out there. Like, maybe he was over vintaged, not stored properly. I don't know what it was. But like, what you got from Kelsey in that game is literally all that you need from him at this stage. If Pacheco is going to be able to run and if Rashee Rice is going to be able to play like that. Now, here's the thing. I mentioned that Rashee Rice had 12 targets in this game, as many as the rest of his teammates not named Travis Kelsey combined. He also ended up with 50 more yards than the rest of them, probably all of that coming with his yards after the catch, because he is, I believe he finished third, but didn't really play in the final game of the season, was the league leader going into week 18 in yards after the catch as a rookie. How Rashee amassed these 130 yards, these 8 receptions in his playoff debut, it wasn't impressive. I mentioned that before the break. It was a lot of short, easy throws with some yak tacked on. This simplified offense, man, it's working. And because that deep ball is not hitting, because he, can't seem to find that connection with McColl for the 5th straight year, for the 2nd straight year, can't really seem to get anything working with MVS. I think that, like, the guy that I feel most confident is going to catch it when Mahomes is throwing it more than 20 yards downfield is Justin Whiteson, maybe? I'm not sure. But here's the thing. Because that deep game isn't working, I think it's about time that we see a double move for Rashee Rice. because teams are going to start cluing in on all the slants and the drags and the hooks. A lot of these like run across the zone, and as he runs, he's creating space. I think if they allow him to do one of those, and whether we're talking about like a wheel route and he ends up taking up the sideline, or he runs that drag and then turns it upfield. I know we got a visual audience now, Dirk. I got to
break it down film. Look at this offensive scheme coming from you.
I'm just telling you, man.
Follow the finger, Rashee.
I think I want to say it was Verderame. He put a play up because he was talking about Bobby Slowick and Houston with their very impressive round one performance, putting up 40 plus on largely considered the best defense in the NFL for the Browns. He had this clip of Dalton Schultz basically running that route. He's like dragging across the field and then ends up cutting deep, and he is just wide open, absolutely wide open on that Schultz touchdown. And that's the kind of thing that if they're going to be biting on the short stuff with Rashee, I think that there is an opportunity to maybe throw a double move in there, and that's something I'm going to be looking for in this game against Buffalo.
Well, he didn't go too deep. I mean, Rashee basically has like one deep catch on the year, and it was in like a major blown coverage. Was that Cincinnati? I think it was. I'm not sure. It was a game.
It was the one when he said he recognized that they were like in cover zero, and he said, "I'm going to run this."
I don't think the safety like came over properly, and so he just pops like wide open. So we haven't seen too much of that, but he was doing kind of the deep over stuff, which is what we've seen. We've seen Kelsey and Tyreek do this throughout the years, and it's just kind of from the slot, and you're just sprinting across the field and catching the ball at like a 15 to 20 yard angle, pretty much. He had a couple of those in this game. I think that's a pretty good spot for him. I feel like that's kind of usually like a Kelsey route, and they kind of maybe have been saving Rashee running it all season and kind of busting it out in this game. But you also saw a really impressive play from him. It was I want to say it was a 3rd and 10. And Mahomes had time in the pocket, and he was staying in the pocket, and Rashee just kind of sits there and finds the hole in the zone. And that's how many times have we seen Mahomes and his receivers not be on the same page of finding that hole in the zone, and they did a great job doing that, I thought, on that play. So I thought Rashee had a couple nice plays, some decent, nothing deep, but a few intermediate catches, which I think is, a lot of the season was just like, we got to get the ball into his hands as quick as possible, real quick over the middle against the zone, just a smoke screen out there to him or something like that. So I think you're starting to see him do more and more, which is just wildly impressive, to a point now where receiving prop ahead of this game, his yardage is higher than Stephon Diggs. I mean, if I had told you that 8 weeks ago, the Chiefs are going to play the Bills in a playoff game, and they're going to have a receiver with the higher receiving prop than Stephon Diggs, not Kelsey, not Travis Kelsey, a wide receiver with a higher receiving prop than Stephon Diggs, who was a maybe top 5. I mean, he has a weird decline in the second half of the season, but he was kind of a top 5 receiver going into that, top 10 receiver kind of. But now not seemingly on the same page with Josh, and now the Chiefs have the highest projected receiver in that game. That's a wild swing from things earlier in the season. I want to switch over to the defense from this game. Are you ready to switch to the defense?
I'm definitely ready to switch. They deserve it.
The defense was dominant. We're talking a lot about the Chiefs offense here, and that's going up against a Dolphins defense that was filled with injuries. So they should have produced in this game despite the cold. But the Dolphins offense was at full strength. It might have been too cold out there for them. I couldn't even spit it out. But the defense basically, allowed one play. Beyond that, and even if McDuffie makes the tackle on that play, you're looking at a 1st and goal from the 10 or a 1st and 10 from the 11 right in there. And I think there's a good chance that they hold them to 3 on that drive. Like, the defense was just absolutely dominant against did they finish the number 1 offense in the league, or maybe the number 2 offense in the league? Like, I know they were faltering down the stretch, and I know it was cold, but they didn't have a chance. And, they just completely shut them down. It was a dominant performance. 0 plays inside the red zone for the Dolphins offense. 2 missed tackles in the entire game. And I really think the stuff that was coming out after this game, saw multiple players saying it, a rallying cry behind L'Jarius Sneed. They asked Nick Bolton about what happens in the game or something, and he just doesn't even answer the question. He just says, what does this say about your defense? That L'Jarius Sneed should be in the Pro Bowl?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like that's an odd answer. It's not really what I asked, but you can tell that like teams need like rallying cries like this. They need something like a message to rally behind and get behind. Like they love to be an underdog. I mean, we've got sick over it over the years with the Patriots saying it over and over, like you guys aren't the underdog. You got to go over this. But that didn't stop them from saying it inside the locker room. And they rallied behind it and they believed it. And the rallying cry for this defense, for this team right now, kind of seems to be rallying behind L'Jarius Sneed not getting into the Pro Bowl or an All-Pro berth. And it's awesome to see.
The thing that I think a lot of people were worried about, I know I came into this game feeling really confident, but I figured if there's one way that the Dolphins are going to get the Chiefs, it's that they're going to be able to run the ball effectively. And it's this Chiefs run defense. You know, people are saying that like this, you know, that might be the fly in the ointment for this team. Quietly, the run defense not as efficient or effective as you would like. And enter, you know, one of the best run game designers in the league, a guy that is coming from the Shanahan tree who produces 1,000-yard rushers like it's nothing. And I'm sitting here thinking, God, dude, like that is scary. It's cold. Neither team is really going to want to throw the ball, and they're going to be able to scheme up the run. Have you seen the numbers? Have you seen the 6 carries for 9 yards for Devon Achane? Have you seen that Achane and Mostert combined for fewer than 70 yards from scrimmage? I mean, they absolutely sniffed out every single thing that the Dolphins were doing. And honestly, I think including the touchdown play. Like it was this terribly underthrown pass. And did you see McDuffie talk about it? Like, well, Trent McDuffie is phenomenal. The second year in the league, all pro, fantastic. Can you imagine if L'Jarius Sneed, they said that, so the top 4 guys in voting become the all pros for first team and second team. Sneed was 5th.
Yeah.
He was just outside of the circle. Can you imagine if Sneed and McDuffie both named all pro, like just what a banner that would be for this defense. McDuffie gets the slot corner all pro spot. But as a second year player, such an impressive thing. And every time I listen to this guy talk, I'm just blown away by him. He's like, well, you know, I'm chasing Tyreek Hill, and the only thing I'm really focused on is trying to keep up with him. And then, you know, then I really wish I would have made that tackle. Like, we don't get a shutout because I don't make that play. I'll be better next time. It's not going to happen again. And like, really, I didn't even see, like, Tyreek had created separation. He's the fastest player in the league. But like, it really kind of seemed like McDuffie was running stride for stride with him. Tyreek wasn't getting more separation as they were running. It wasn't like he was pulling away from him. And really, apart from that play, it just seemed like they had nothing. I want to say Tua ended up with fewer than 200 passing yards, and the drive that they ended on, when I think they ended up getting 2 fourth down conversions on that last drive too. I mean, Tua probably had 50 or so passing yards on that last drive. I know he picked one of those up with his legs. Tua running, very interesting. Had about 74 rushing yards all year, and I think he had like 35 in this game.
One of my favorite tweets was Tua is sneaky unathletic.
There you go, right?
It was a perfect description. It's like, man, he is like incredibly slow, incredibly. But I mean,
one thing that I did find really interesting, and we don't have to like dig into the snap counts or anything, but the like third most played defensive back that is getting reps at both corner and safety. We saw, I think, 15 more snaps for Chamari Connor than Joshua Williams. And Jalen Watson was all the way down at just like 11 snaps. But the Chiefs really went, I believe what Craig calls it is big nickel, because they go to 3 safeties instead of 3 corners. And that's not necessarily, I think, what most people would expect against Miami, that you would probably want the lighter, faster guys. But, man, they were just – you mentioned only 2 missed tackles in the game. A lot of people are saying maybe Nick Bolton's best performance. And I could see best performance this year because he got hurt early in the year and hasn't quite been himself since he came back. But like, I didn't think that Nick Bolton did anything particularly like, oh my gosh, look at Nick Bolton. I know that he made some plays. He looked like Nick Bolton to me. And so I thought it was kind of surprising that everybody has been like really shouting out Bolton after that game because it really just looked like another Nick Bolton game to me. He looked healthy. And that's fantastic.
Well, I think Nick Bolton, he had a couple tough games when he came back from the injury, especially against Buffalo, which we'll kind of get to here. But I mean, there's a lot of dislike for Nick Bolton out there. I like to defend him because I think he is good, full stop. But my only issue is that I think Drew Tranquill is really good. And so I just want that guy on the field. Like it's less about bringing down Nick Bolton and more about bringing up Drew Tranquill. But I do think Nick Bolton had a really great game. He was everywhere out there. He had 8 of his 10 tackles were stops, according to PFF, which is a negative play, which I think is a run under 3 yards and a throw under 6 yards, I want to say, or something like that. But it's basically like a win for the defense. So Nick Bolton did really good. Shamari Conner was interesting. Chimichanga Carter kind of he played a lot in the first game against the Dolphins, so that was kind of interesting. It's kind of a game plan specific thing, I think. Also, he's just playing more since Brian Cook went down, and then Jalen Watson. I heard some people said he got banged up against the Chargers in the last game. I never saw him on an injury report or anything. I just think Jalen Watson is a really good player, and so I really want him playing over Joshua Williams. And they seem to kind of, trade off, or maybe Watson's banged up, but that's something that we might kind of see here play out in this next game against the Bills with go 3 receivers heavy. But I always want Jalen Watson out there because I think he's a really good player. And it's nothing against Joshua Williams. I just really like Jalen Watson.
Couple more quick points on the defense, but first, a little break.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL playoffs, is bringing you an offer that'll help make the playoffs electrifying. New customers can bet $5 on any game and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Now, if you download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code KCSN, you can bet just $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code KCSN. The crown is yours. If you have a gambling problem, you need to call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, you can call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/football for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. So real quick, before we transition to Chiefs Bills, a couple other things on the defense. Number one of the first things that came out of Andy Reid's mouth when he got to the podium after the game was 1 of 12 on third down. It's like Miami just did not have answers. And not only was the defense physically dominating Miami, I think that they were just bringing it on every single play. I remember seeing one. I went to try to rewatch the game today and could only find like a highlight package that was about 15, 20 minutes long. And they showed this play where Tranquill chases down from the backside. It's like they're doing the zone to the edge on the opposite side of the field, and Tranquill from the backside chases this play down, and I believe it's Achane that he wrangles for like a 2-yard loss on a 3rd and 3 maybe. And I'm looking, I was like, who is 23? Oh, it's Tranquill. I mean, look, dude, it felt like everybody had an opportunity to go out and make a play. And whether it's defensive backs being competitive at the catch point, whether it's Mike Edwards getting that interception early on, whether it's all of the different linebackers showing up and making their plays. Guys on the defensive line. I mean, George Karlaftis was phenomenal. I saw you mention your boy Warthog getting after it in the run game. Whether it's Charles Omenihu having a 25% pressure rate, just seeing like he was involved in everything. Chris Jones continues to be unblockable. This defense, man, what a special group of players. And I just love that the team seems to realize we can lean on them. Like, they are what we do best. And so let's do every single thing that we can to put them in positions to play that way.
Yeah, and I just want to highlight a play early on when it's still 13-7. Dolphins driving a little bit. They're at the Kansas City 44 on the fourth and 1. It's closer to a 4th and 2, I think. And the Chiefs go 2-man rush. And 2-man rush, and Omenihu wins pretty early in that, forces Tua to step up. Willie Gay sitting there in a QB spy, just kind of waiting for him. So he steps up kind of right into Willie, has Tyreek open the whole time. Whereas if he just has a clean pocket against a 2-man rush, he probably just gets that to Tyreek real quick, and they move the sticks and convert like that. But because of the pressure from Omenihu and a 2-man rush, and then Willie Gay stepping up right in that spy, which is a great call by Spags and a great job by Willie, they come in and McDuffie breaks that pass up. So a huge play early on in that game when it was still a ball game. And you mentioned the 1 of 12. I went back and looked. The Dolphins were 3 of 12 in the first game against the Chiefs. So they finished 4 of 24 on third downs against the Chiefs defense. Just a complete annihilation from Steve Spagnuolo against maybe the hottest young coach in the NFL in Mike McDaniel. Just annihilation across 2 games. And one more shout out for Snead, who doesn't allow a single touchdown. You think about McDuffie doesn't play that bad on that play and gives up a touchdown. Snead doesn't give up a single touchdown the entire season. I feel like we haven't given him enough airtime on this show. And Snead's season is unbelievable. He annihilates Tyreek off the line. He's the tone setter for this team. We kind of talked about leaders for a lot. He might be the tone setter now because he comes out and punks the top receiver on the other team every single game. Every single game. He's going to do it to Stephon Diggs this game. He might get a penalty for illegal hands to the face, and that's fine because the message that it sends is just like, Snead is fucking here. He has given up 1 catch to Tyreek and Waddle across both games. So, I mean, that might be the best receiver combo in the league. And here's Snead, doesn't care, shuts him down. He changed positions this year, going from slot corner to playing outside and chasing top receivers. That seems impossible, and it seems like, oh man, I hope he can hold up. He didn't just hold up. He excelled and was the best cornerback in the NFL this season. I don't need to watch anybody else. I've watched the guys who took first team All-Pro. They're not as good as L'Jarius Sneed. That dude is phenomenal. I love L'Jarius Sneed. He will be my next jersey purchase.
Well, and America had a front row seat for the style of play that you're getting from Jalen Ramsey at this point. About as involved in the run game as Marcus Peters, really just not playing physical, not playing competitive. And I mean, this is as important as it gets, man. And they got a bunch of gamers, man. And I honestly believe that there may not be a coordinator in the NFL doing a more consistently just incredible job on a week-to-week basis than Steve Spagnuolo right now. You can point to some of the hot coordinator candidates, guys like Bobby Slowick, what he's done with CJ Stroud this year, Ben Johnson with a bunch of really odd parts in Detroit, and yet they still have just been scoring back-to-back years. But dude, what Spags is doing right now, and the fact that he has basically no oversight, that guy has carte blanche. All right. We're not talking about the offensive coordinator in Miami or even in Kansas City. No offense, Matt Nagy, but that's the Andy Reid show. Well, this defense, there is nobody telling Spags what to do. He is absolutely like the head coach of that defense, and they're one of the best units in the NFL. They're just so good, and they give me so much confidence going into this Buffalo game. I wanted to look at a couple things here. We don't tend to do a whole lot of preview. It's usually review on this show, but man, you couldn't ask for a better game in the divisional round It's the matchup that we deserve. It's the matchup that I personally wanted. In the last 3 postseasons, the Bills have lost to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship. They have lost to the Chiefs in the divisional round, and then they lost to the Bengals for the right to lose to the Chiefs. Couldn't even make their way to the AFC Championship last year. And so I know that this is a game. Like I actually, in watching that game against Pittsburgh, I think that it wasn't as close as people want to make it out to be. I know they made it a 1-possession game in the fourth quarter, but I look at it, man, and I'm just like, the Bills are in a different class than Pittsburgh. I'm glad that they won convincingly. That was really an expected result for me. I like that everything kind of came easy for them. No TJ Watt out there. They're playing against Mason Rudolph. Like, that is a wild card team, right? If the Chiefs actually played a different version of that team in the Steelers a couple of years ago and waxed that ass too in the wild card round. All right. But false confidence is a hell of a drug, folks. The Bills are going to come into this game, I think, absolutely feeling themselves. They won. They're now on a 6-game winning streak. They've been in playoff games for, I don't know, 7 or 8 weeks now. They're a battle-tested team. They're good. But, man, I tell you what, they are in for a fight on Sunday night in Orchard Park, and I can't wait to see how they respond to pressure and frustration, because I promise you it's coming. It is coming.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of like the third mega showdown of like the Chiefs dynasty, I would say. It really just feels like, okay, we're on a collision course and it's happening. And I feel like that was 2021 against Buffalo, and I think it was 2022 against Cincinnati. And now this year, it's just kind of, all right, this is it. Cards on the table. Let's see what these guys got. It's going to be a lot of fun, but the pressure, and this was kind of like my biggest take after that 2021 game, was the pressure on Buffalo to win the next one after dropping the first 2 to Kansas City and Mahomes in the playoffs. The pressure on the next one on Buffalo is immense, because if it doesn't happen this year, when is it going to happen, man? And it's just the pressure of, talk to a Chiefs fan right now, like every single one of us is full of confidence. And why? Because we've been here before and we've done it, and there's no pressure. We're playing with house money. We're defending champs. We've been here. I'm texting with our guy Billy Pesto a little bit. He is not confident going into this game. He's very upset about the linebacker injuries. He says Kelsey is going to feast. We're not going to see how washed he actually is. He's throwing shade while not being confident at the time. And I think this is just, a look into what Buffalo fans are feeling, because this is what Chiefs fans thought before Mahomes came in and changed everything. Like, all the pressure is on, all the weight. Their entire history of the Buffalo Bills is on their shoulders right now, and they can feel it. And sometimes that can even backfire when you're in your home stadium. Chiefs fans know that feeling all too well. Once something that starts going south, it's just like, okay, it's like a collective gasp among like 60 or 70,000 people. And it's just like, okay, no, we're fine. No, just don't, we're fine. We're going to be fine. And it's just like the pressure, the nerves start to spread. And that is something that they have to deal with, and the Chiefs don't have to deal with. And I think that might be, one of the biggest factors going into this game is that kind of pressure. And I think Pesto's mindset is kind of just a look into the eyes of Bills fans. They're afraid of losing this game, whereas Chiefs fans are excited as hell to finally see playoff road Mahomes out there.
We have a Bills fan in the comments section right now. And the only actually measured thing that this person has said is that it's hard to call it a rivalry if you don't win. And I think that that's where a lot of Chiefs fans would look. They would say, look at it. Like, Josh Allen is 3-1 against the Chiefs in the regular season, and he constantly comes into Arrowhead and beats the Chiefs during the regular season. But you get into the postseason, and the Chiefs are 2-0 against the Bills. Here are the quarterbacks that Josh Allen has beaten in the playoffs. Phillip Rivers on the Colts. Beat Lamar Jackson once.
Justin Herbert,
who I believe, has one playoff win. Another guy that can't seem to get it done when it matters. He beat Mac Jones. He beat Skylar Thompson. And he beat Mason Rudolph. Rudolph and Thompson are literal backup quarterbacks that were forced into action because of injuries to starters. Mac Jones lost his job this year. Again, Lamar struggles in the playoffs. And then 38, 39-year-old Phillip Rivers, might as well have been Justin Herbert out there. I just look at it and I say,
how dare you?
I say, you know what? Like, physically, to me, Josh Allen is LeBron. Like, rare size and skills at his position make him extremely difficult to defend as like an individual player. But unlike LeBron, who always looks to make the right play, sometimes even to his detriment, Josh is prone to making some of the goofiest decisions I've ever seen on a football field. I mean, I think that when the pass rush ramps up, when Spagnuolo gets in his bag, they said against Miami, 7 different fronts and 8 different coverages, I believe. Spags is just throwing stuff out there, doing everything he can to confuse guys pre-snap. Ultimately, to me, I think it just comes down to, can you tackle Josh Allen? Because I know they're going to be able to confuse him. I would imagine they're going to be able to turn him over once or twice. It's going to come down to what they can do defensively, because I don't see a whole lot from that Bills defense that scares me.
Well, they've been playing a lot better lately, the defense, but they did have some concerning injuries, like as Pesto was referring to, their linebacker went down in this game, and that means playing AJ Klein and another dude they're already backups because Matt Milano should be the starter in there. So they're down to their at least second stringers inside. They had cornerback injuries. I haven't seen much of a report on them yet, but that is pushing like first round disappointment. Kyra Elam, is that his name? Who they ended up with because we took
with Jason Elam, former Bronco kicker.
Yeah, exactly.
I totally see the resemblance.
Yeah. So they kind of ended up with him because they wanted McDuffie, but we stole him away. And then they were playing some other corner. Damn, I forgot to write down his name, but he was getting picked on towards the end of that Steelers game. So that's something they have to deal with on defense. But their defense it had a huge lull in the middle of the season. It's bounced back and been better ever since McDermott was shouting out the jihadists of 9/11. But with Josh Allen, a stat for you
from that story. I truly cannot believe that they ended up winning their division and the 2 seed after that story. It says a lot about Sean McDermott, man. Like, I think he's in the Andy Reid tree, and I think that he is a great football coach.
I don't know if he's a great coach because I think their defense is kind of the ones that let him down. That's debatable in my mind. But I do think that's a rallying cry for the team. And we talked about the rallying cries don't have to be like accurate. They don't have to be like make sense and be like, oh man, yeah, that's a cool one. You just need everybody to buy in and to believe in it. And I think once that happens, it's the Bills are just like, okay, everybody in this locker room, let's fucking go. Like we talked about it with when Mahomes and Andy complained about the refs. They don't have to be like on the right side of history here or anything like that. They have to have everybody in that locker room buy in to believe it and rally around it. And I think you're kind of seeing that with the L'Jarius Sneed stuff too, although I do think that's legit. A quick Josh Allen stat. He is 17-0 since 2020 when he doesn't throw an interception. So that will be something to watch. He likes to throw them. The Bills have the number 1 rush offense over the final 9 weeks of the season. That's kind of been the biggest change since they changed offensive coordinators.
I think that's like since it happened, right? Like since Joe Brady took over the offense, they're the number 1 rushing team in the league.
Essentially. And that's been the big change. Like the offense hasn't been like that much better, but there has been kind of a style change for them, it's really weird because we've seen like Mahomes and Allen like go off and be these all-time quarterbacks and these unicorns and they can do everything. And now both teams, Chiefs are kind of leaning into being a defensive team. Bills are kind of leaning more into being a running team and kind of limiting Josh Allen's mistakes. It's a really funny turn that we've seen like from these 2 teams. So those are just 2 interesting stats. I've got some Mahomes stats here.
Can I talk on turnovers real quick before you get there?
Go for it.
So you mentioned like Josh likes to give the ball away. I mean, Nick Wright has been chronicling Josh Allen's turnovers really since he started to become the player that he is. But Josh Allen has led the league in turnovers since he entered the league. He's turned it over more than anybody. Listen to this. This will put some things in perspective for you. This year, in the turnover differential column, we know that the Chiefs really struggled here. They weren't taking the ball away very much. Mahomes had his most interceptions in a single season. Really just kind of had some bad luck throughout the year. The Bills end up +2, and the Chiefs, you know where the Chiefs finished the year in turnover differential?
-8.
-11.
Oof.
I mean, it's not great, folks. It's not great.
But I mean, they were negative last year too. It's just wild that they've had this much success while sustaining a negative turnover differential.
So here is the difference between the Chiefs and Bills in terms of their turnover differential. In giveaways, turnovers, Chiefs and Bills tied for 7th, 28 turnovers apiece. Both teams giving the ball away. But when it comes to takeaways, the Bills are 2nd in the league, 30 takeaways in the regular season. The Chiefs are 28th with 17 takeaways. So I don't necessarily know what that says because, I'd have to go and look. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if they're getting, the quarterback off schedule and forcing bad throws. I don't know if guys are making excellent plays to cut off a route or what. I don't watch the Bills every week. I'm not sure how these turnovers are happening. But I know that the Bills defense, no matter what kind of streak they might be on, you said they've kind of, been playing better of late. That Bills defense doesn't have Tre'Davious White. They don't have Matt Milano. Now they don't have Terrell Bernard. They were missing Rasul Douglas. They were missing Taylor Rapp. And some of these guys might be back in the mix, but I don't think they have a single player on their defense healthy right now that is in the same realm. You could say Ed Oliver, I guess. I know they seem to really like Ed Oliver. But apart from him, I mean, Chris Jones, Trent McDuffie, L'Jarius Sneed, Nick Bolton, I mean, on and on and on down the line. And I know you still have a guy like Jordan Poyer in the secondary, a captain. He's been around for a long time, but I'm just not afraid of that unit. And one thing I think will be really interesting watching how they end up matching up with one another is that Bills pass rush. I look at this Dolphins game, and don't get me wrong, it's expected. You mentioned that the Chiefs, what was it? What was the line? The Chiefs welfare office, all the defenders that Miami was picking up trying to rush Pat Mahomes on Saturday night. He had all day to throw, man. He was so comfortable in that game. It's again expected, but it was great to see the offensive line performing that way. I don't know exactly what to expect against that Bills front. I know that they have a lot of highly drafted talent. Many of those guys haven't necessarily panned out and become the players that you want to see, but both teams, Chiefs and Bills, like I said, they are tied at 28 giveaways on the season. The difference has been the Bills have been taking the ball away from their opponent and the Chiefs have not. But I still think it's not even much of a contest in terms of the quality of play on the defense. And I just feel so much more confident in the Chiefs being able to slow down the Bills than the Bills being able to slow down the Chiefs.
Yeah, and they have a pass rush by committee kind of thing. They had, I think it was 6 guys over 5 sacks or so. Or it looks like 5 guys here. Leonard Floyd, Ed Oliver, Terrell Bernard, who got hurt, AJ Epinesa, Greg Russo. That doesn't even include Daquan Jones, who missed time and came back, or Von Miller, who apparently is still alive and playing somehow and not incarcerated. So shout out to him. Let's get to these Mahomes stats, because there's a lot of talk about Mahomes going on the road. Mahomes as an underdog. It'll be his first, not his first playoff game as an underdog. We were actually underdogs against Eagles in the Super Bowl last year at one point.
Weren't we underdogs against Tampa too?
No. Favored in that game.
Favored? Ooh. Ooh.
We should have won. We blew it. But I wanted to look at some Mahomes stats here, see how he's fared as an underdog. 2.5 points right now. I think it's kind of good. It was at 2, went up to 2.5, and it's still numbers are skewing even higher, maybe. But Bills have injuries here. Mahomes is an underdog. He has a 7-3 record. The 3 losses for Mahomes as an underdog, the Chiefs have scored 51. You might remember that game. They've scored 40. That was in New England against Bill Belichick, and 20 points, which was actually against the Bills in last year's game. In those 10 games, he has 33 touchdowns against 9 picks, and the team is averaging 36.3 points per game. That is Mahomes as an underdog. I think he thrives in that role. He eats it up. He wants to be the underdog, even when the Chiefs are the favorite. It's kind of the old Patriot storyline there. How about Mahomes on the road? A lot of talk. Mahomes never won a playoff game on the road. He's also never won a game in the 1970s because neither of them have happened. He hasn't had the opportunity to do so. How about Mahomes on the road versus his home numbers? 38-11 on the road in his career. 2 games better than his home record of 36-11. This is regular season only, by the way. 68% completion to 65. 1,600 more yards passing. That's 22 per game more on the road. He has 19 more touchdowns. He has 8 fewer sacks. He has an 8.3 yards per attempt to 7.5. He has 126 more rushing yards on the road, and his QB rating is 107.6 to 99.3 at home. Basically, across the board, better at everything on the road in his career, which is wild to see. I kind of believed it. I always thought he's good on the road, but he eats these environments up. He loves being the underdog. He loves going on the road, being the villain. I think he is very, very, very ready for this opportunity, coming off what I would say is his best game of the season, and I'm ready to see him explode. I'm ready to see road playoff Mahomes in our faces.
I saw a clip of him. I don't know if the clip is recent. I don't know if it's something that just happened. But I saw a clip of him that was maybe only 10 seconds long, and the guy asked him one of KCSN's favorite questions for college guys coming in. Would you rather be the hero at home or the villain on the road? And he said, man, I actually really like being the villain. And all of those numbers, I think, are emblematic of that. He's better at basically everything on the road. He takes his game to a different level. And he certainly does so in the postseason as well. I do think if we want to look for some potential areas of concern for this team, I would imagine that people are still thinking about the red zone in the back-to-back games that I have said were the best games of the year, the Week 17 against the Bengals, and then ultimately the wild card game against the Dolphins. I see you've got your finger.
On the red zone, I'm not sure if you're going to get there, but I forgot to get to this in our Dolphins notes. One side of the field, the end zone was just frozen. And so none of the touchdowns in the game happened on that side. All 3 happened on the other side. Chiefs kicked all 4 of their field goals on that end. It just seemed like, and you could kind of see some of the all 22 plays, and it's just like the receivers couldn't cut it all. It's just like taking 6 baby steps before they can try and make a cut. I think it was really tough to throw, and then they did kind of score that touchdown to Rashee Rice, but that wasn't even a throw down field or anything. It was just a screen. And that was, I think, basically all they could do at that point. I don't think they felt comfortable calling normal pass plays into that end zone because I just don't think they trust their footing down there. And you could see that side of the field was like that. And that was all 4 field goals. So I think that's somewhat of an excuse. This obviously extends into the Cincinnati game, so it's not like a overarching excuse for everything, but it's something they need to shore up. This could be the downfall of the team if they don't shore it up in the red zone. This is something they have to figure out.
They went 2 of 6, 2 touchdowns and 4 field goals in the red zone. 1 field goal, as we mentioned earlier, should have been a touchdown. Phantom bad penalty. On their 4 failures in the red zone, the third down play that like sealed it, that made it so that they were going to kick a field goal. The first one, bad snap from Creed. Play was doomed from the start. The second one, batted ball at the line of scrimmage. Sucks. Doesn't happen very often to Mahomes, but it happens. His third one was when they called that screen on like 3rd and 8, and everybody was like, situationally, Andy, what the hell are you doing?
Oh,
Mahomes threw it at Pacheco's feet. He just grounded it because he said, we're gonna just kick a field goal here. Basically, let's take the points. And then the last one, he had a rusher coming straight up the middle, right in his face, completely unblocked, and he threw the ball away. And as you mentioned, all 4 of these are on the icy end. So you have, 2 things that can happen, pretty regularly with the bad snap and the batted ball. And then twice Mahomes decides to throw the ball away and take the points. And I don't want that to sound like excuses, but when you hear 2 of 6 in the red zone, it sounds like, oh my God, they had all these failures. And it's like, they scored every time. None of their 6 trips into the red zone, resulted in a failure. They didn't turn the ball over, right? And like, that's the kind of stuff that has been killing them, is the turnovers on downs, getting pushed out of field goal range, Mahomes throwing a pick, whatever it is, fumbling the ball. Those kind of mistakes in the red zone, they can't afford. If the Chiefs are getting in the red zone and they're kicking field goals, I know that people are worried. I'm just not. I'm not. It's part of the package of this team. Kick as many red zone field goals as you want. I'm going to be celebrating every single one of them. I want the points.
A dirty Herman celebrator over there. Look at you. You've really come around. I mean, also in this game, I don't think they really needed to press the whole time. I think they kind of knew that 3 points was going to get the job done for the rest of the game. I mean, they kicked their first field goal to go up 10-0 and had complete control from that moment on. I don't think they were ever like stressing about it, like, have to get 7 here. Let's bust out, like, let's use our number 1 play here to score on this. I think it was just kind of like, let's put it in if we can. Let's try and run the ball in. Let's try to get it easily. Let's throw a screen. If it doesn't happen, we'll kick the 3 and we'll get out of here with the win, because that's all that matters today. But they do have to be better. I don't think they can go like 2 of 6 against the Bills and win this game. So it is somewhere that I think they will need to improve upon. A couple notes from last meeting: injuries for the Chiefs. They did not have Drew Tranquil against the Bills in the last game, and they did not have Isaiah Pacheco. That was Nick Bolton's first game back. We weren't sure if we're going to even have either of them. We did get Bolton, and he got picked on a lot, especially early. It was all tight ends, and then James Cook out of the backfield. He had 85 receiving yards or something like that. So that was a big loss. It'll be interesting to see what they do with those guys, if they're going to keep Bolton out there for every snap and see if he still gets picked on. And that's going to be part of the Bills' game plan. If he's there, they're going to try and isolate him onto a running back or a tight end. Kincaid is a problem. I mean, he might be his most trusted receiver right now with the swoon that we've seen from Stephon Diggs. Dalton Kincaid can put up numbers. He looks really good. And Pacheco not playing was big. I mean, Pacheco is a huge part of this team. Clyde had a valiant effort, but Pacheco is just a different guy, and they need him, especially in the playoffs. His physicality. Looking at his playoff game log, his fewest yards in a playoff game in his career is 76. So he's gone over 76 yards in all 4 of his playoff games thus far. So an important part of the Chiefs' offense in the playoffs for sure.
I think defensively, when it comes to James Cook, whether it's in the passing game or it's the Bills' just determination to run the football, really since Joe Brady took over, Derek Nottie got hurt in the game against Miami, did not return, said it was an elbow issue. We mentioned last week that Chiefs signed Isaiah Buggs, our boy.
Big Pooh!
Big Pooh. Craig Stout, pretty bullish on Big Pooh. We do have
I love Big Poohs. I love Big Poohs. Shout out.
We do have Mike Pennell wearing number 69. I mean, just absolutely. But I think it's going to be important for those guys to be doing their jobs up front so that the linebackers can run free and make plays. Obviously, having Tranquil will certainly help in terms of trying to mark James Cook coming out of the backfield. Connor may be playing a big part in that too. Willie Gay playing some of his best football right now, knowing apparently that he's not going to be a Chief next year. Is kind of what everybody seems to think based on that tweet. There are some ways that Buffalo might be able to attack the Chiefs. I totally get it. One way that I think that the Chiefs might be able to attack the Bills, man, it's playoff Patrick time. All right. The man had 42 yards rushing on just 2 scrambles. I told you guys that Patrick Mahomes was going to run the ball a little bit. We are in the playoffs. It's time to go. He had a 28-yard romp on 4th and 4. And then the literal helmet cracking carry in the red zone. Those the 2 scrambles for Mahomes with the linebacker play being what it is in Buffalo. That is going to be a big test for them. Is Mahomes going to be killing them on 3rd downs, being able to move the chains with his legs?
Yeah, a great play. Good job of Andy to go for that 4th down. I feel like that might be one where he punted in the regular season, but it was playoff time. I think he ramps up the aggressiveness a little bit, and not just an iconic moment from the Mahomes helmet break. I mean, I think that's kind of how we're going to remember this game. A few moments where Andy's frozen mustache, that his helmet breaking, and the picture of it looking like the Grim Reaper, which I never really got down on the Grim Reaper nickname. I wasn't like thrilled with it, but man, the picture of it looking like the Grim Reaper was pretty damn awesome. That's floating all around Twitter. If you haven't seen it by chance, go check that out. And then the hit from McDuffie on Tyreek, I thought that was pretty awesome because for the second time in 2 meetings, we've seen the guy that, we took in the Tyreek Hill trade just demolish Tyreek Hill.
Just so symbolic, man. It's just great. It's great.
He smashed him. Just smashed him. I couldn't believe Tua just let him out to dry like that. Right at the end of the game, too.
Did you see the stat on Mahomes? We know that the Chiefs were well behind. I believe it was 7 division championships behind all 3 of the other teams in the AFC West, and now they lead. The Chiefs have won 8 straight AFC West titles, most of that being in the Mahomes era. Did you see that before Mahomes took over, the Chiefs were 9-18 in the playoffs, and they are now at 500, 21-21. In other words, Patrick Mahomes is 12-3 in the playoffs. It's pretty good.
He has literally turned this franchise's fortunes around. He literally took this franchise from a losing playoff franchise back to dead even, and now hopefully heading into the positive. Do you want to do predictions? I don't really have too much. I think it's going to be. I think it's one of those games where you're just heading on a collision course. And the last 2 that we've seen have both been epic. The 13 seconds with the Bills, the Bengals game last year that was, back and forth in the 4th quarter, and just one of the more draining wins I've seen as a Chiefs fan in the Mahomes era, especially. So I'm expecting another classic like that. I do think anything's on the board. I could see either one of these teams getting hot. I guess hard to see the Chiefs getting blown out. I could see the Chiefs kind of getting after them. But do you have a prediction at all? I mean, I'm going with the Chiefs win. I'm not going to pick them to lose. So, I mean, I'll say an epic win, 4-3 or something like that, since we're a defensive team now.
I wanted to ask you this. Chiefs at their best, Chiefs A game with the roster that they have right now versus Bills at their best A game with the roster that they have right now. If both teams come out and play at their best, who wins the football game?
I mean, I think it's got to be Chiefs, because the reason the Chiefs have struggled a lot this season is because getting in their own way. So if you're telling me they're at their A game, I'm expecting, this year's defense and, kind of last year's version of the offense almost, where if they're not making the mistakes, we even saw some of the mistakes pop up in this game, the McColl deep shots, the Kelsey drops, the Jawan penalties. If you're telling me it's their A game, they're going to clean those up. And I think they have the best offense in the league and a top 3 defense in the league. So I don't think anybody could beat that. I think the A game of the Chiefs is better than anybody in the league, probably even better than San Francisco. So yeah, I'll take Chiefs there.
That's where I'm at. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, well, the Chiefs can't do these things in the red zone and win and this, that, and the other." I don't. It's probably not going to be, let's call it a clean game for both teams. There's just so much pressure. It's the playoffs. Mistakes happen. I do think it's going to be a pretty evenly matched game. Both quarterbacks probably going to turn the ball over once. Maybe it's the second turnover for either team that really switches the fortunes of the game.
Which in the last game was Rashee Rice fumbling the ball. So, I mean, that's everyone looks at the Kadarius Toney penalty at the end, but you're also looking at a play like Rashee Rice fumbling. That can kind of swing things. So it could just be any player on the field fumbling at any time. It could just be a random play like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in for a pretty phenomenal football game, man. I could not be more excited than lining up against that team. Don't get me wrong. I think everybody would have been very pleased to see old Mason Rudolph and the Steelers come into Arrowhead. This is going to be so much more fun than that. Like, I want this opponent. I want to play the Bills. And I really, as you mentioned, I am so excited to see Pat Mahomes do that on the road. Like, getting the first true road game in his playoff career. Dude, I'm gonna be keyed up. It's fantastic. We've got a couple super chat questions that we got to get to before we get out of here. Thoughts on Harbaugh? Do the Chargers have a kingdom? Is it more like Chargers Village? I'm not totally sure.
They got a beach. As far as I'm concerned, they got a beach.
There you go. I think that if the Chargers hired Harbaugh, I, as a Chiefs fan, would say, hey, they may have gotten it right. And that's, I think, as complimentary as I can be. I don't know what happens as far as the GM is concerned. Obviously, the Chargers have some interest. It's mostly about changing the culture in LA because that team, they can't seem to stay healthy. They always seem to, fool around at the end of games, give them away. But I think that that's a Chargers problem. I don't know if any one coach can really get them out of that. But Andy Reid did it here. So I don't know. Does he worry you? Like if the Chargers hire Harbaugh, are you like, okay, all that talent that they've had on this team, and now they have a real coach?
No, they don't worry me because I think they already shit all over that window. I think they had the window when Herbert was on his rookie deal and they lost that. So I think it'd be a good hire. I mean, that's what you want to do is bring in someone like that. It would probably bring some excitement to the team. And it would probably clean up a lot of their shit. So I think it'd be a good hire, but I don't think I could be scared of anything. I mean, you could put God as the coach of the Chargers. I don't think I'd be scared. I'd be like, bring it on. Bring it on.
Second super chat question. Shout out to John Dold here. Why would Andy continue to play Mahomes with less than 5 minutes in the game? I don't know when I sent it out, but I said, pull the starters, folks. This game is over. I think it was even before the last touchdown. I think so. It was when it was 19-7 because it's just Miami was just not there to compete anymore. They just looked done. How about this one? Did you notice that the touchdown for the Dolphins, you know what drive it came on?
Third.
Yeah. The Nick Bolton went and sat on the bench drive to figure a couple things out. Miami scores, but I think it was in 2 plays. So it's not like he got a lot of time to sit there and adjust. But whatever they did, it worked. Were you at all worried? Like, I don't know at what point in the game against Pittsburgh, Terrell Bernard got hurt. The important middle linebacker who had played really well in replacing Matt Milano all season. I don't know. I mean, it was a 1-score game in the fourth quarter. So, it
is a weird thing. I mean, the weird one was like Bradley Chubb for the Dolphins. I mean, he got hurt when they were losing to Baltimore by like 30 points. That's the point where it's just like, you got to just get everybody of importance out of there. I always go back and read my old tweets during the game. I tweeted at some point, why are they even running plays? Just kneel the ball. I don't know what point that was at. I don't know if I was frustrated at something or someone got banged up or something. But obviously, yeah, once it reaches a point, take everybody out. They were never going to put Mahomes in injuries way. But yeah, just at that point, get everybody out. I have no idea why he was in.
Well, Dirk, the Chiefs and Bills are squaring off on Sunday night. Not Peacock this time. It is NBC. We will have Snitch Collinsworth. Not too excited about that. Not too excited.
You're more of a Jason Garrett guy?
I mean,
3 things to focus on this game. Ball, ball, ball.
Clap!
And actually, there was only one fumble the entire game, and it was at the very end. It was kind of weird. Like, the cold didn't seem to bother him that much. Like, it was weird. I think it's the heated fields, but like watching this game versus watching like the NFC Championship game with Coughlin when his face like starts peeling off, that game seemed way colder, even though this one was technically colder. So I think it's the heated field. Nick points out the Bills don't have a heated field, but it'll only be like 15 or 20 this week. That's child's play. Child's play. Plus, both teams are used to it. But
I mean, honestly, like by the time the game starts, I'm just going to be so excited about what's going on that I probably won't even be bothered. He's like, I don't know, Mike. It's Josh Allen. He's just what an incredible guy. Like,
I started calling him the dude in the last game, which offended me to great lengths. I wasn't a big fan of that, but a shout out to our guy Jason Ringer brought a Tua Cold for the Dolphins sign to the game this week. Held it up on his cardboard. Great week for cardboard awareness this week.
Nice.
Great week for the Tua Cold movement. Tua Cold now 2-0. Tua and O in games. So good things all around.
Was it Tua Cold in Germany?
No, the Tua Cold, the Raiders game of 2016 and this game. The movement. Yeah.
All right. We got it. All right, folks. Chiefs Bills Sunday night for the rights to go to the AFC Championship for the 6th straight season. It's a big one, folks. This has been Amateur Hour. I'm Ryan Scott Hall. He says Dirkness, and Justin Herbert is Philip Rivers.